Hey guys, today we're going to talk about single board computers. Now, as you can see, I have a few of them in front of the camera right now, and most of them are Raspberry Pis, but I have a few other interesting.
It's fine. It's fine.
So the majority of these are Raspberry Pis, but some are not. I have some more on the side here. I'm going to bring those in. So let's talk about these. So this is probably the newest one I have here is the Nvidia Jetson Nano. And as you can see, this is significantly larger than the others. So usually when people say single board computer, I mean, technically they could be referring to a larger, x86 based thing with a pretty good sized board, but usually they're referring to these smaller computers, which includes this, but this is a little bit on the bigger side. But yeah, it all started with the Raspberry Pi, or not really, they had these beforehand, but this is where it really started to become popular. So over here we have the original Raspberry Pi, so this is a Raspberry Pi B, and I have another one. So I have a Raspberry Pi 3 here. So I have the original Raspberry Pi and the Raspberry Pi 3, and over here you're going to see the Raspberry Pi 4, which is significantly more powerful. We've got a couple Raspberry Pi 4s here without heat sinks on them yet, and then I have a Raspberry Pi here, Raspberry Pi 4 here. This guy has a couple heat sinks on it. They're a little bit they're not, I didn't place them on straight, but I don't want to take them off and change them. I did a video where I showed how I put the heat sinks on. These two don't have heat sinks yet, and I don't know if I will put heat sinks on them. But these two are specifically, so this is just going to be to play around with, and these two are going to be used for robots. So I have a couple robot kits. So if you subscribe to the channel, you're probably going to see my robot building video when that comes out. But so I have a couple robot kits where it requires a Raspberry Pi 4, and the Pi 4 doesn't come with the robot kits, so I bought these separately for the controller and my robot kits. So yeah, we got so these guys are going in each of these are going in a robot. This guy's for playing around with. Each of these is a 4 gig Raspberry Pi 4. This guy's the Raspberry Pi 0W, so W for Wi-Fi. So it's a Raspberry Pi 0, but it has Wi-Fi. And you'll see this one is in it. It's much smaller than the others, and it actually comes. I've already installed this in a little case, and you'll see it has a camera on the front. So this camera comes separately, and it has a little ribbon cable going into the CSI port over here. But basically, all it is this tiny little card here. That's all the Raspberry Pi 0W is, and it's thick because, like, you can see how thin it is. It's just that one little card, and the rest of this is just different layers of the case, and it has that camera board. It has the camera board and the little ribbon cable. But this is I'm gonna have some neat projects for this. I have a couple cases here. I'm not going in any specific order. This is for my Raspberry Pi 4. It has a little fan you can connect. You can connect the jumper cables to your Raspberry Pi 4. I'm going to use this for this. So this case is going to be used for this guy. I bought it in a kit. And these two, I just bought them without any SD cards or chargers or anything, because they're going to be battery powered and they're going to be part of a robot. So in this case over here, I bought this for the original. I bought this for the original Raspberry Pi. I have a couple cases like this, and I actually have two original Raspberry Pi Bs. I only have one I'm showing here. This guy is not in use. It has a little wireless card here, a little USB wireless card plugged into it. But basically, I have. Anyways, my other Raspberry Pi, my other original Raspberry Pi Model B, so this one, the B came out first, and then the original Raspberry Pi A came out. But anyways, so this guy here, you can tell just by glancing at it, basically the size of the SD card and the fact that it has this video port here. Those are quick tip-offs that this is an original Raspberry Pi B. So I have this, and I have another one just like it that I'm using as my firewall router now. I'm recording this video in the year 2020, so my firewall router has been using a Raspberry Pi for years now. I did a whole nother video on that, but that thing has been there for years powering my network. I'm going to replace it soon with something better, with something with full gigabit Ethernet. Anyways, what else are we going to go over here? Yeah, so anyways, that's going to get replaced. And this guy, as I briefly mentioned at the beginning of the video, this is a Raspberry Pi 3B. So it's newer, and I believe I was using this, and you'll see the SD card is smaller. It doesn't have that other video port that this one does. So yeah, I have a few Raspberry Pis like that. What else do I have in here? Okay, so I should talk about this guy real quick. So this is an Odroid. This is an Odroid XU4. It's quad core. It uses the little big architecture or big little architecture, however you say it. But it has some of the cores are low speed for low power consumption, and then it has higher power cores that use more power for when it needs more performance. So I'm going to be doing a lot of Odroid content coming up. So far I've done mostly Raspberry Pi stuff, but I have a ton of Odroid stuff coming up. And they're generally known for being, this is pretty old, but still a pretty powerful model of Odroid. They have much newer versions with more updated CPUs, but this one has a ton of cores. I believe this even has more cores than the newest one that's out. The newer Odroids only have 6 cores. This guy has 8 cores, so this is pretty awesome, but the cores are much older, so I assume less powerful. I'd want to see benchmarks. This is, yeah, so anyways, this is the Odroid XU4. If nothing else, it looks really cool. You see that blue looking heatsink and the transparent fan on here. It came with this heatsink and fan already attached. It has a bunch of I/O ports on it, and it has like true, I believe this is true gigabit Ethernet, so it's not going through the USB controller or anything like the older Raspberry Pis. And it has a little power button, so you can turn it on like this. You don't have to plug it, unplug it to turn it on and off. That's pretty nice. And it supports eMMC memory, so in addition to the SD card. So this is a pretty nice thing. Yeah, so that's the Odroid. And what else do we have here? So I should talk about this big thing we have in the center here, the Nvidia Jetson Nano. I just recorded a video about this guy, but this has the thing that stands out. Yeah, sure, it has like some USB 2.0 and 3.0 ports, and I believe these are all 2.0, but this guy here would be 3.1. HDMI, gigabit Ethernet, all standard stuff. Bunch of I/O ports here, bunch of I/O ports here. It's a pretty big sized board, and it has another separate board here that's actually lifted up off of the main one, and it sticks in a slot here. It has this gigantic heat sink on it, and this thing just slides into this slot here. But the biggest notable thing about this is the number of cores on the GPU. Now the CPU for this is just a Cortex A57, which is pretty decent, but what really stands out about this is it has a 128 core Nvidia Maxwell GPU. So for a single board computer, that's pretty crazy. Like, I have not seen, maybe I'm wrong here or just misinformed, but as far as I know, I have not seen another single board computer with that many cores on the GPU. This thing is crazy. This has a really powerful GPU on it. This is pretty crazy. So, and this is geared towards AI. I'm sure you could use this for practically anything else you would want. It's great for general purpose use, but this is geared towards AI. So this thing, I'm really excited to start using this. This is really notable, and we have a lot of cool stuff coming up for that. So the next thing I want to go over is this other board. Now this looks like a Raspberry Pi. It's the same form factor, but it's not a Raspberry Pi. This is actually an Asus Tinkerboard. And it has a rock chip, and it's basically, so I haven't spent a ton of time going over the specs yet, but you'll see it has an Ethernet port, 4 USB ports. The layout is similar to a Raspberry Pi. You see it has a little DSI display port and a CSI camera port, and what else? HDMI. An audio jack, a USB power jack, and has the GPIO pins. I believe this is supposed to be compatible with a Raspberry Pi, but this is another interesting thing. This is one of the cheaper Asus boards that you can get of the Tinker boards that are available. This is one of the less expensive ones. Now, another very notable board that we have to go over, this really deserves to be mentioned, is the Pocket Beagle Octavio Octavio System. Yeah, anyways, I don't know a whole lot about these, but there's some basic instructions for how to set this up. The first thing you'll notice is it basically just has a USB port for power or connecting it to a PC, and I believe this ends up getting mounted. It's treated as a device, and it has an SD card slot, but you'll notice there's no other ports for a keyboard or mouse, no HDMI or anything like that. This is meant to be used for like robots and stuff. Alright, yeah, so anyway, coming back to this, yeah, so this deserves mentioning. This is the Pocket Beagle, and I bought this recently and haven't done anything with it yet. I believe there's a little switch on here to turn it on and off. The first thing you'll notice about this is it doesn't have an HDMI port, no USB ports where you could plug in like a keyboard or a monitor or anything. So when you set this up, I believe the instructions said, I haven't tried this yet, but I believe you plug this into your PC and treat it as a device, and I believe it either gives you a web page or a document. I forget if it mounts it as like a device on your network, or if it treats it as like a USB drive and just has instructions for setting it up. But SD card would go here, and you would basically manage it over this, or I believe Wi-Fi. I believe this has Wi-Fi on it. Now, mostly you're going to use this as a component in electronics projects or robots. So you'll see it has a ton of these I/O pins. It has no actual pins, but it has the little holes where you would solder things into. So this is meant to be soldered, and they're all labeled, which is extremely nice. That's extremely helpful. But this is meant for electronics projects. This isn't meant to be like as a desktop replacement or a computer or something, but I'm sure you could use it as that if you wanted to. You could probably hook something up to these. But anyways, that's generally, you wouldn't buy this for that purpose. Yeah, so even like the Raspberry Pi Zero, like this is actually, it's a little wider, but it's not as long. Even the Raspberry Pi Zero has an HDMI port on it and some USB ports, so you could have a keyboard monitor on this and use this kind of as a low-powered desktop. But this guy's really small. You could almost fit this on a wristwatch. It would be a big, oversized wristwatch, but you could use this as like, wearable technology or whatever. But yeah, this is a really small, neat thing that I'm pretty excited to use this in a lot of projects. They have a lot of so Beagleboard has a lot of so this is the Beagleboard Pocket Beagle. It's super tiny. They have a lot of much larger boards with more ports and stuff on them. So this is just a very smaller model. This is the only Beagleboard product that I have at the time of this recording. Probably going to buy some more and check those out too. But anyways, that's that. So that's the Beagle, the Pocket Beagle, and last but not least, I have a couple other devices that are not actually single board compute. You might, depending on what definition you use, you might call these single board computers, but generally we wouldn't categorize these as single board computers. We would just call these microcontrollers. So this is the Arduino Uno, and the ones, if you were to buy this today, you're going to get revision 3. This is actually, I believe, revision 1, because I bought this forever ago. I recently did a video where I showed you how to make a LED blink with this. Now, I recently bought this. This is the Beagle Uno 3 R3, and so this is like, this is a clone of an Arduino Uno, but this is a clone of the revision 3 version of the Arduino, and this is like the revision 1 of the original Arduino. But anyways, these should be vaguely equivalent. The ports are slightly different. The ports on this should match the ports on the revision 3 of the original Arduino. They both come with a little button here to turn it on and off. Got a little button here, a little button here. Now the difference between these Arduinos and a single board computer, well, the big difference to me, besides that these are really, really low powered, but like they can only fit a tiny bit of code in them and stuff. But the big thing with these is you would deploy a piece of code to this and it just runs your code directly on startup. It has no operating system or anything else like that. Whereas all these single board computers, these have an operating system. Normally you're going to install like Linux or RISC OS or something like that on these. So usually a single board computer is actually like a computer that you would install an operating system on. Now technically these are single board and technically these are computers, but we would just call these microcontrollers, because you don't install an operating system on it. If there's one thing that could differentiate between just a microcontroller and an actual single board computer, I would just say these don't have an operating system. Now, technically, you could just say these are all single board computers, but in common, common usage of the term single board computer, these don't count as single board computers, and the rest of these do. So there's that. What else could I show you in this video? So we'll put these guys over here, and I'm probably going to take a picture of these, for the write-up for this. And I'd like to, I don't know, let's take a look at some of the, we have some heat sinks. I actually forget which board that goes with. This is actually what the camera cable looks like. I believe I pulled this off of my Raspberry Pi camera. So I removed this off my Raspberry Pi camera. So the camera has the slot on the Raspberry Pi Zero for this camera cable is much smaller than it is on a regular Raspberry Pi. This cable this is for a regular Raspberry Pi, but the end on this cable is on this ribbon cable is too large for the Pi Zero. So I removed this from the camera. This is what came with the camera, and I used there's a ribbon cable that actually came in the kit that my Pi Zero had, and that ribbon cable I attached that to my Raspberry Pi camera, and then attached it to my Pi Zero. So I'm using a different cable. Now you'll notice this Raspberry Pi camera is darker. The Raspberry Pi camera is actually green and this camera is black. It's because this is the Raspberry Pi Noir or No IR. It's the same as the regular Raspberry Pi camera, except it has no IR filter on it. So there's that. What else? Here's some SD cards, some spare SD cards. I grabbed a bunch of them for some of these. I'm probably gonna have to grab even more. Nothing too exciting there. Oh wow, look at that. I have like 6 of these actually, 6 spare. Yeah, I'm probably gonna have enough to power every single one of these. I have this Asus Tinkerboard, the Nvidia. I still have this Pocket Beagle. I have the Odroid. I have both of these 2 new Raspberry Pi 4s that I need to power up. Yeah, so I have a few different things that are gonna need SD cards. And I'm hoping to build some robots this weekend or maybe this week. But anyways, I think that's about everything I wanted to cover in terms of single board computers. I just wanted to give an overview of what I have so far. Not pictured here is my original Raspberry Pi that I'm using to run my network right now. This is basically everything I have at the moment. I believe this is everything. And I'm going to be buying some more soon. So this is the collection so far. These all are going to be used. Some are going to be just for experimenting. Some are going to be used for other interesting things. And I have a bunch more coming up. There are a ton of different types. One I want to get is I want to get a few banana pies. So it's they're basically making a play on the term Raspberry Pi. So banana pie, a lot of them notably they have. They come with a bunch of ports and they're designed for building your own router, and some of them are more powerful than Raspberry Pis depending on which Pi, and so they have different features, but they're really interesting. As far as I can tell, you have to go on like AliExpress if you want to get a banana Pi. And one thing I noticed, it looks like one of the models of banana Pi, most of them are ARM based, but one of them is actually RISC-V based, which I'm really excited to test out a RISC-V based computer, because that's supposed to be the future now. So RISC-V is going to be coming up against ARM and Intel based architectures. So that's pretty cool. So we have some banana Pi. There does exist, I want to get some Pine 64 single board computers. There exists an Orange Pi. There's a ton of different Raspberry Pi competitors and single board computers out there. One that stands out is the Coral Dev board that's made for artificial intelligence, and Google, I believe, actually came out with their own version of it. And they also, so Coral comes out with single board computers as dev boards, but they also have separate modules that have TPUs for AI. They're like they're basically little, they're basically little chips that are designed to power artificial intelligence based applications. Now the new M1 based Apple computers come with they have these artificial intelligence chips built into them, and that's becoming a very popular thing these days. So like the new Apple computers are the new ARM based Apple computers using Apple Silicon are great for artificial intelligence. And you can actually buy, that's a popular thing for both Google and Apple, and you can buy these expansion cards that you'll have these little, it's like it's like a separate processor that does only AI, and you can actually buy one of these separate processors that you can plug into the USB port of your Raspberry Pi or whatever other single board computer you have, and it helps you run things like TensorFlow and do computer vision and other cool things like that. But also there's so you can buy it as a separate USB module, or you can just buy the whole USB. You can buy the whole USB port, or the whole single board computer, but those come from Coral, and I'm definitely planning on buying some Coral products. And there are probably a ton more that I'm not even thinking of right off the top of my head, but I'm definitely going to get some more Odroid products. And yeah, there's just a ton more single board computer stuff I'm going to be experimenting with. I'm going to be doing a lot of electronics projects, robots, you know, servos, LEDs, all sorts of different things. I'm going to be doing a lot of electronic stuff. I'm going to be using the stuff that I have so far, and I'm going to be buying more stuff. And I'm going to be using these in a lot of my 3D printed projects too. I just bought a 3D printer. I did a couple videos on that I haven't published yet at the time of this recording. I don't know if I'm going to publish them before this video or after, but yeah, I'm going to be doing a lot of 3D printed stuff that's going to go really well with a lot of this, a lot of robot building and single board computer stuff and electronics projects. So we have a lot of interesting things coming up. I know I keep saying that in every one of my videos, but we really do have a lot of really great stuff coming up. So stay tuned for that. You're going to want to subscribe to my channel and hit the little bell icon so you get an alert when a new video comes out. And we do a lot of great stuff from electronics, servers, PC hardware, databases, coding, basically anything technology related you can think of. So definitely subscribe and hit the little bell icon. Give us a thumbs up or even a thumbs down if that's how you feel. Make sure to leave a comment down below if you have anything to say. You know, if you have any comments, criticisms, questions, anything you want to say, we want to know what you think. Leave a comment down below. And you know, as always, hopefully you enjoyed watching this video, and that's pretty much it for today. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. One other thing worth mentioning is I figured I'd show this on video. This is a little bit of a hack job here, but I took this old this box from this old CanaKit box that I believe one of my probably my Raspberry Pi 4 came in this. But anyways, I took this old CanaKit box that came with a ton of Raspberry Pi accessories too, and I cut it up, and I used the hot glue gun I put little sections of cardboard in here and glued them in with my hot glue gun, and I'm actually surprised at how stable they are. They're held in there pretty solidly. So I created little slots, and I placed my single board computers in there like this. So I put like this guy in here. You know, put my Odroid in here, stick all of my single board computers in here like this. This is like extremely convenient for these. And yeah, see how incredibly convenient this is? Just stick them all in here. So I should probably get like a real case to organize these in, but for the time being, I had so many of these just scattered all over. I built this little temporary box to keep them in. So I have this nice little cardboard thing. It's a cardboard box originally meant to ship a Raspberry Pi in originally anyways, and so I chopped up the lid for it and made little sections. And so this is what I'm using to carry all my Raspberry Pis right now. So yeah, stick these in like that. And see, that's really incredibly convenient for carrying these. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Pretty neat little thing here. I also have like some heat sinks and cables and SD cards on the end here. And I might want to move those because I now have a few more boards that I want to put in here. I'm actually going to start taking these out and putting these in projects. Like a couple of these Raspberry Pis are going to go into a robot within the next few days, so I'm not going to need this for those soon. But yeah, just wanted to show everybody this neat little holder for my single board computers. And I should probably be able to build something a little bit nicer for them than that. But yeah, just wanted to share that with everyone too before the end of the video. And look at that, that's pretty much everything packed into one box. So yeah, everything all in this one neat little box, and I'll put this in my electronics cabinet for the time being.